Welcome to our SI March Madness show. We'll be coming to you live on SI social platforms every week throughout the NCAA men's basketball tournament. I'm Madeline Burke for Sports Illustrated. I'm joined today by our SI Director of Basketball Recruiting, Jason Jordan, our SI Senior Writer, Pat Forty, and Senior Gambling and Fantasy Insider, Frankie Whispers Tadeo. Guys, we've got odds, predictions, players to watch coming your way, and of course, our final four predictions to help you fill out your bracket. Make sure you join in on the SI Bracket Challenge. It's free to play for a chance to win nearly $5,000 in total prizes. Visit bracket.si.com to play. But first, fellas, this is a tournament unlike any other. I know we're all grateful that we have a tournament this year, but COVID is still being felt very severely. There's going to be very little to no travel. All games are going to be played within the state of Indiana at multiple sites. And in addition, the tournament is going to tip off on Friday, March 19th, as opposed to the usual Thursday afternoon that we're all used to. But going to start just by going around the horn. Jason, I'm going to start with you. What are you expecting from this year's tournament? What's one storyline you've got your eye on?
Well, there are multiple different ones that I'm looking at. I would say the biggest one, obviously, we're in COVID. Like you said, we're in a pandemic season. So I expect a lot of rust from these guys. A lot of them aren't practicing the way they're used to be playing. Yes, they're used to the COVID season, but the reality is they're not used to this type of lockdown. Like, they're in their room. I've talked to a lot of different players, texting back and forth with them, and a lot of them are like, well, we thought we knew what we were getting into, but this is Fort Knox lockdown. They have hall monitors. They're eating in the room. They're not leaving their room. So all of that, I'm looking at, that's going to impact how they play. At some point,
absolutely.
I just wonder what the impact of that will be. That's what I'm going to be looking at, how rusty they're going to be to start off for sure. Physically
and mentally, you'd have to assume. Pat, what about you?
There's no doubt. How are people going to handle the extremely unusual circumstances? Some of the advantages that are usually there for top seeds are not, in terms of playing closer to home, having more of the tickets. Everybody's pretty much on an even footing from that standpoint. And then beyond that, looking at a specific storyline, I think you've got to look at Gonzaga trying to be the first undefeated champion in 45 years, since Indiana in 1976. Zags have had an unbelievable season, but I think you take a lot of pressure into the tournament when you have that zero in the loss column. We'll see how they handle that and react to all the challenges that they're going to have.
And Frankie, I know you've been keeping your eyes on the lines and the betting and all this. What is one thing that you're really focusing on heading into this tournament?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see with all the lockdown and playing all these games, without, very limited travel. I'm interested to see if the betting trend can continue where the underdogs just absolutely dominate and continue to win ATS, against the spread, at a 60% clip over the last 2 years. If that trend can continue in the round of 64 once again, because we know that despite the fact that, we're seeing these teams win, predominantly at a strong clip, 43 and 21 straight up over the last 2 years. In the round of 64, they've really struggled against the spread, where the underdogs have really come out on top. I want to see if that trend continues despite all the changes.
Yeah, and for the underdogs, too, it's going to be interesting to note how the 25% capacity, the very limited fan attendance, is going to affect them. There's going to be a lot less juice in these buildings. But, of course, Tuesday, news broke that the NCAA has found 5 positive COVID cases out of over 2,300 tests among Tier 1, 2, and 3 personnel from the 67 teams that arrived in Indy. Additionally, though, the NCAA is losing 6 veteran referees right before the tournament because of 1 positive COVID test and 5 close contacts. Pat, I know you recently wrote about this afternoon for SI. What is the impact here, losing some veteran referees for a sport that's already kind of seen some officiating issues?
Yeah, Madeline, I think it's very significant. I mean, you're talking about some very prominent guys that have been in multiple Final Fours and that are accustomed to handling the pressure of the big games and calling them. Roger Ayers, who's one of the officials who's out, my money is the best official in college basketball. He will not be working the tournament. Ted Valentine, a lot of people don't like his showboating, but he's a good ref, and the coaches like him. They want him on the floor. He will not be. John Higgins as well, another official who I think is one of the best, will not be there. So, this is not – I've talked to several coaches who said it's not a real deep pool of officials to begin with at the high end. Now you start taking some of them out, and I think they're a bit nervous about whether these guys are going to be able to basically manage the big games and the big pressure in those moments. And one additional COVID issue, Madeline, we were waiting. 6 o'clock today was supposed to be the deadline at which time a standby team, the standby teams that are waiting just in case other teams cannot get into the tournament due to COVID reasons, they would take their place. Well, 6 o'clock has come and went. There's been no word from the NCAA. I'm told that they will address it Wednesday morning. If everything were okay, I would think they would address it Tuesday night, but we'll see what comes of this. But that's one more storyline to watch.
Yeah, that's got to be interesting, too, because Kansas and Virginia, of course, dealing with COVID issues. Virginia did not even play in the ACC tournament due to COVID, yet to announce whether or not they will be in the NCAA tournament. If one of those teams does withdraw, a team out of the pool of Louisville, Colorado State, St. Louis, or Ole Miss would take the place. And it's kind of interesting to think, too, a team that's, the first four out could end up with a pretty high seed just by default because they're playing a replacement. Jason, how do you see that affecting this playing out?
It's just, you take a team like Louisville. Well, they had a big pause and they missed 2 games against Syracuse. They probably should have, I think Louisville's better than Syracuse across the board. So, that's 2 games they probably would have been in. It'll certainly affect. The biggest effect, again, I go back to the mental aspect of it. You think about it like this. Take a team like that. They're coming in late. And they have to go into that bubble. Well, we call it the bubble, but it's not exactly like the bubble. People compare this to the NBA bubble, but you got to remember that the NBA bubble those are grown men. These are 18 to 22-year-olds. Science tells me that at 25 is around the age where your brain is fully formed. I'm 39. If you leave me in the hotel room for 2 days, it's only been 2 days. And again, I've texted with multiple players that are like, oh my God, the walls are closing in. This is 2 days in, so all of these things will have a great deal of effect. Me as a grown 39-year-old, I don't know how that would affect me on the court, but I'm not imagining that it would affect me to be super efficient from the beginning. So got a lot of things that we're going to be looking forward to, especially early on. But think about that. I'm talking about that now. Think about week 2.
Week 2, week 3. The walls there's only so many games of Candy Crush one can play. But, obviously, too, Pat, you mentioned Wednesday morning we might hear something. Frankie, how would that affect the odds? Obviously, a lot of these things are in flux. People are putting money down already, though, right?
Yeah, obviously there'll be a refund in those games because there won't be any action. There's already automatic refunds, but it really could throw a haymaker and throw everything out of whack in terms of futures betting. Because as we know, in the field of 64, everyone is looking to get down some money on the long shots or on their favorite team, on their alma mater, on who they really believe is going to win. So if these COVID situations and with these teams maybe being thrown out and being replaced, and obviously we know it could be even more than just these 2 teams, because as you guys alluded to, if these games, once we get into the later rounds, this could become more and more of an issue. So I think this actually could decrease the amount of handle odds makers normally would see in the futures market, where bettors are actually going to be looking to bet on individual games as opposed to be looking at those futures markets, because they could actually, once these games lock, this could be like a PGA tournament. A lot of the sports books they're going to have rules that once the first game tips off, your bet is action. So if you bet on a team and that team eventually is forced to leave the bubble and forfeit their games due to COVID reasons, you're going to lose that money. So I think that's a little bit of a scary proposition for bettors, but it'll be interesting to see if that handle really falls off the cliff, obviously with these COVID issues right now.
Absolutely. And of course, Tuesday's SI Daily Cover was a deep dive into all 68 teams in the tournament by our very own Pat Forty, of course, showing love to the #1 overall seed Gonzaga. Have to point out the interesting stat here that Duke and Kentucky will miss the tournament for the very first time in the same year since 1975 and 76. That's also the last time there was an unbeaten national champion. That's when Indiana went 32-0 to win it all. So if Gonzaga wins the NCAA tournament this year, the Bulldogs would finish 32-0. They come into this tournament 26-0, as we referenced earlier in this show. Overall #1 seed. I got to ask, just show of thumbs up or thumbs down. Can Gonzaga be the first undefeated team since 76 to do it?
2 thumbs up. Absolutely. I mean, I think they've got a great chance to do it.
They got a great chance. Yeah. I mean, I think that they do have a good chance, but there's also some other teams in here that, you're showing some love to. I want to hear what's one team that you stand out that you see that, maybe isn't getting enough love in the rankings.
Well, personally, I would say, the one that I thought was undervalued by the committee is Oklahoma State. They're a number 4 seed coming into this. I had them in my 1 to 68 rankings as the number 5 overall team, which means I would have them as the highest number 2 if I were in charge of the seedings. They were playing great at the end of the season. They have elite talent. Cade Cunningham's going to be the first player picked in the draft, but he's not alone. They have got long, athletic, tough guys, and they're playing very confidently, very loosely. Mike Boynton has done a phenomenal job coaching them. And I say, watch out for Oklahoma State. I feel badly for Illinois at some of the roadblocks really that have been put in front of them. We can get into that later. But I think the Cowboys right now are the most undervalued team from a seeding standpoint.
I like that. Jason, what about you?
Agree with you, Pat. And I looked at your rankings. I just started clapping. Right, my wife and kids were trying to figure out what I was doing. I felt like Will Smith on The Pursuit of Happiness. But yeah, like them at number 5, I completely agree with you. They should have been a number 2 seed. I mean, they just knocked off Baylor. Look what they did in the Big 12. We'll talk about that later, who got the shaft job. But the rankings, Georgia Tech at 17, love that. I would have had them there right around that angle too. Only thing I do have one gripe with you, Pat, about your rankings, my man, and that is Loyola Chicago at number 18. Now, Sister Jean is gonna be in the house, so I think we all know that makes them top 5. That's top 5.
I mean, it really does. I mean, she's 101 years old, and this woman is coming through the good luck charm for Loyola over here. Plus, this team is leading the nation on the defensive end. So that on top of Sister Jean. But I really do think Sister Jean plays a little bit more of a role than the defensive rankings, right?
They literally have the higher power. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
They really do. They really do. I got to see it. I mean, and of these, like Frankie, when you're looking at these teams and you're seeing how they're ranked, is there a team that you're thinking is not getting the odds in the favor that they should be?
I would actually say possibly one team stands out, and that would probably be the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, before you laugh, obviously everyone thinks about Alabama, you're always thinking about the gridiron and as opposed to the hardwood. But right now there's no Nick Saban here, but they really don't need him right now because this Alabama team is really impressive right now. They have one of the best young players that a lot of people really don't talk about, and being a Villanova alumni, I actually know, and I saw this kid struggle a little bit in Jay Wright's system, and that would be Javon Quinley. He has really emerged and taken over the leadership spot right now. He's one of the best 6 men in the country right now, and he's being forced into even impressed more minutes right now because of injuries for that team right now, and he's really been playing impressive. Javon Quinley looks like a completely different player than he was at the main line for the Villanova Wildcats, and right now, I know that Pat has him in the top 5. He's their number 4, his number 4 overall ranked team. And at odds of 20-1, they won the SEC. They look like they're battle tested right now. And with Quinley right now running the show and looking really efficient right now, I believe that Alabama is one of those teams that's really getting disrespected and really not getting enough love. I know they got a number 2 seed from the committee, but and that's quite impressive in its own right, especially for a team that's predominantly known for its accolades on the football field. But obviously, guys, the odds makers, they're not giving them a lot of love because at 20-1, they offer legitimate value, and they're a team to keep your eye on because Alabama, they look like they really could roll tide. It might be they might find themselves in a Final Four.
Well, it's interesting, too, because Alabama is coming off that win. They edged out a win over LSU, and LSU had a few chances to close out that game. They just really couldn't. But also in that corner of the bracket, you got Texas at that 3 seed. And I feel like Texas also is a team you got to keep your eye on, especially with what they've been doing lately. They might kind of mess around and make some noise in this bracket as well.
Yeah, Shelton Smart definitely has them there. He looks like he's really got that team motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a team that you think really just got the shaft that just should have been in this tournament or should have been a lot higher than they were?
Well, I'll take that a little bit different way, and I will say that I think Illinois got the shaft in terms of the road in front of them. I think that for a team that I think, I've got number 2 in my rankings, and I think is the second best team to be the number 1 seed and to be looking at a second round game against either Georgia Tech, the ACC tournament champion, who is the lowest seeded ACC tourney champion in 34 years since 1987. That's a tough matchup, but so is Loyola Chicago, who's 24-4, and as you said, the nation's number 1 defensive team. So they got a tough round of 32 game. And then if you get past that, as I pointed out, you've got Oklahoma State in that Sweet 16 game. I mean, you are going through 2 slobber knocker games just to get to a regional final, and you're a number 1 seed.
Also, that word slobber knocker is a great word. We're going to have to keep using that one throughout this tournament because that is a perfect descriptor right here. But Illinois is getting a lot of bets in this early action. And I think, that's got to be an indicator, obviously, of how fun they've been to watch recently. But, where the money goes, it seems like people kind of know what they're talking about a little bit in that regard.
Yeah, I totally believe so. I mean, this team, it's been absolutely phenomenal. For Vegas Whispers Sharps, for all the SI Pro members over at the premium here at SI Gambling, we gave Illinois at plus 375 to win their conference championship, and obviously they came through. And what's really not to like? I mean, I assume it was absolutely phenomenal. And guys, he actually reminds me so much of Kemba Walker, and we saw what Kemba Walker did a decade ago, leading the UConn Huskies to the 11 consecutive wins and then eventually a national championship. And Iowa really has that opportunity right now. But, also, down low, Kofi Coburn, he's absolutely a force down low. He's like an immovable object down there right now. And I know that, Iowa is coming off those, he's really struggling, I think, to find his shot playing with that face guard right now. But, he's still found a way to lead the team. Obviously, he went for 17, 9, and 8. And right now he looks absolutely phenomenal. But I think that the only bone that I would have to pick with Pat is I know that they did get the tougher path. I know obviously Gonzaga is obviously has the easiest path of any of the teams out there. But for me overall, if I had to look at these teams, I would actually have Illinois. I have them ranked higher in my power rankings over Gonzaga. That's the only thing I have a little real difference with, is that I think that Illinois is the best overall team in this field. The thing is, as Pat alluded to, they really got the raw deal in terms of the draw because they have so many roadblocks in front of them. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can really, if Iowa really can put on that kind of Kemba Walker performance, because they're going to need that if they're going to be able to get through all these landmines. Yeah, that's the epitome of the expression, to be the best, you got to beat the best, because they are going to really have to go through a lot, as you mentioned. One other thing that stood out to me, Pat, in your team rankings was your description of UNC. You essentially said they could lose in the first round to Wisconsin or beat Baylor and make a deep run. Those are 2 very different movies. Jason, I see you nodding your head here. What is your reaction to that?
Matt, man, you're on it. Man, you're in my head right now. I said the same thing. the matchup I'm most looking forward to is in the second round, because I have UNC beating Wisconsin in the first round. That's not going to be easy, but I have them beating in the first round. When they get to Baylor, here's the thing. I tweeted this last week. No coach, and I've talked.
Oh, and this is the suspense killing us. Are we losing the Wi-Fi? See this right here. This is live internet, and you froze on the prayer hands right there. So I know
the prayer hands. Okay, I'm back. So
all right, we got him back. So no coach.
No coach wants to see North Carolina's front line. They don't want to see North Carolina's front line. Here's the thing. The best thing that North Carolina does is rebound the basketball. They have 4 bigs that will probably, in all likelihood, play in the NBA. Walker Kessler, Armando Bacot, Garrison Brooks, and the star freshman. Okay, so this is the thing. If this is North Carolina's problem, is this: they have young guards, and so young guards sometimes they're going to look like the one and done stars they're supposed to be. Sometimes they're going to look like they should be on the back of the bench at the rec league, and that's just what they've been all year. This is the thing for North Carolina. Kerwin Walton. If Kerwin Walton would ever realize that he has star potential as a shooter, then I think they would go a lot further. Kerwin Walton is an absolute star as a shooter. He just doesn't know it. So the best thing they can do, and Pat even wrote this, I said this last week, shoot the ball, Kerwin. Shoot the ball, Kerwin. You have 4 NBA bigs down there that are going to rebound the ball over and over. And
I feel like Jason's just bringing too much heat to this conversation. The internet is not ready. The internet is not ready for all these takes, but we are. And once he unfreezes, I know that we will get those. But you know what? I like that. Oh, now he's back. But you know what? I like that. Shoot the ball.
Yeah. No,
shoot
I think
you got to shoot the ball.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, that's the thing. You got a guy who can shoot it, and you got other guards. Put it up, and then have other guys go get it. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the country. Let them do their work.
Got to do it. And we talked a little bit too, looking at these divisions, which one's tough. You know, obviously the Midwest, Illinois got a tough road. One thing that stood out to me, though, is in the East, Michigan State, UCLA as a play-in game. Like, what a way to start this tournament. These two teams Michigan State, 23rd straight NCAA tournament for Tom Izzo. But Michigan State alone, they've beaten, at least 3 of these number 1 seeds in the tournament. That's pretty crazy to think that this is a play-in game.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's high level. And the committee put that together, and I guarantee CBS execs came in and hugged them all, said, thank you. That is a draw on Thursday night as the nightcap there. And, just the tradition, obviously UCLA's won far more titles than any other school. And then Michigan State is a constant presence. And now neither team's having a great season. I mean, UCLA is flat lucky they're in the tournament. They really don't have a lot to hang their hat on. They finished very poorly, finished on a losing streak. Michigan State, on the other hand, finished well enough to get in, won some of those big games you alluded to, Madeline, just to get into the tournament. So it's going to be basically 2 teams going different directions. And can UCLA get their season back on track here for at least one game? And then, the winner of that, hey, they're going to be a tough out in the next round.
Yeah, absolutely. In that division too, I mean, you got Michigan as the number 1 seed too there. Michigan doesn't necessarily have the easy road in the East to get to the Final Four. Are they, of the number 1 seeds, which team do you think has the least chance? Would it be Michigan? Would it be fair to say that they have the least likely chance to get to the Final Four?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a consensus on that one.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you look at Michigan, first of all, the injury to Isaiah Livers. How bad is it? Can he play this week or not? If he can't play, they're really behind the 8 ball because he's a very good player and really part of that long defensive front that they've got in the front court. And then I think the second round matchup is very tough, even if they're at full strength. LSU probably has 3 pros in the lineup. St. Bonaventure is a very good team that has played extremely well down the stretch, would be a tough matchup. And then you've got maybe Florida State waiting out there, maybe Alabama waiting out there. So I just think there's a lot of difficulty for a team that's not at full strength.
Yeah, and mentioning LSU, I know we talked a little bit about that LSU-Alabama game, but they're coming in off of that loss where they really were in it and they had it and they just couldn't close it out. And Jason, I know you've been talking a little bit about mindset, especially throughout this. For a team like that, Will Wade bringing this group in here, coming off of that loss, is this kind of perfect timing to have a moment like that heading into the tournament?
I think so. I some people say don't believe in the loss being a lesson thing. They don't believe in that. I personally believe that you learned a lot from a loss, so it's not really a loss if you learn from it. And I know that LSU has supreme confidence. You look at a guy like Trendon Watford, had a career game in that loss to Alabama, and he's clicking at the right time. Cam Thomas, one of the best scorers in the country, regardless of class, just happens to be a freshman. So they're coming in with a lot of confidence and they lost to a team who I agree that they could go to the final. Actually, I have them going to the Final Four because, of their two. They're one of the best 2A, maybe the best 2A team in college basketball. Just locking up defensively and how efficient they are and how quick they score. I love their pace and all the possessions they have. So when you go up against a team like that, your confidence is going to be at a supreme high. But back up to Michigan, easily the toughest road. I thought Michigan, this is not going to be popular with Michigan fans, so turn your screens real quick. I thought they would have had the toughest road with Isaiah Livers. I know. You don't agree. I know. Here's the thing. You take 13-6-2 away from any number 1 seed, and that's going to be rough, right? I'm going to probably pick against you around the Elite 8 time, no matter who you are if you're losing that. Right now, Michigan is pumping it into Hunter Dickinson, and that works if you have Isaiah Livers on the floor stretching the defense, he's knocking out 40% of his 3-point shots. But to get out of that bracket, you're going to have to beat the Big East champ, the SEC champ, and the Big 12 champ. Tall order indeed. And I just think Alabama's I just think they're at a different level right now. And the way they play, I think is going to give Michigan a super headache with Isaiah Livers. Without him, I just don't see how they win that game.
I mean, Isaiah Livers, number 2 scorer on Michigan's basketball team. But fun fact about this squad, Juwan Howard is the first person to both play in and coach in an NCAA tournament as a number 1 seed since seeding began in 1979. So you know what? I'm all here for the fun facts. I mean, they may not go that far in the tournament, but at least we got to sprinkle in some fun facts.
There you go.
Storyline. You got to keep it interesting. And as we look at our brackets and fill these out and kind of look ahead, Frankie, I know we were talking about this earlier. There's like a couple matchups that you're hoping to see. What's one matchup that you really looking forward to is kind of like an ideal for you?
Yeah, that would be in that Sweet 16 matchup between, if that potentially happens between Illinois and Oklahoma State. I want to see Io take on Cade Cunningham, 2 of the best players in the country, 2 of the top players that'll probably be drafted overall. Maybe, if Io comes out, I'm not really sure. Obviously Cade is the rumored and projected number 1 upcoming draft. So I want to see that matchup. I want to see Cade versus Io. That would be my favorite one. But, we got throwing out those fun facts out there. You guys were talking about Michigan State before. How about this? There has been at least one 11 seed who is Michigan State, by the way, who has made the Sweet 16 in 8 of the last 10 tournaments. So one of these 11 seeds out there, whether it be Syracuse or Wichita State or potentially Drake, we got a lot of these teams out there. Michigan State, one of these teams has this really strong potential of making it, not only winning their opening round game. Obviously for Michigan State, they're going to have to win the play-in game and then also win in the field of 64. Obviously, they have that strong potential. So let's see if one of those teams, because it looks like history could be on Michigan State's side. You guys alluded to the fact that they've taken down some really top powers that are in this tournament already, and they've already defeated them. So I think that Michigan State, they could be one of those teams that really keeps upon that trend of seeing that 11 seed move on. But for me, I'm really looking forward to that potential matchup between Oklahoma State and Illinois, because I want to see Cade take on Io.
That's going to be a good one. Pat, is there one that you've got your eye on?
Yeah, I'm looking at Baylor's region because I think they have been so tough this year. I've called them a Joe Frazier team where you can hit them in the face 10 times in a row. They're going to still keep coming at you. They're going to back you into the corner, and they're going to eventually take you out. But this is what happens when that runs up against a North Carolina in the second round, or another intriguing matchup for me, Madeline, a Baylor-Arkansas regional final. I think Arkansas is incredibly talented. Moses Moody is a first-round draft pick. They are fast. They are fearless. They're playing with a lot of confidence right now. And I think that would be a great test for Baylor as well. So I think there's a couple in Baylor's region. And then Baylor's wobbled a little bit at the end here. They had a 3-week COVID pause and haven't come back to that at quite that killer instinct level that they were before. Can they regain that? And then can they take down a couple of these very talented teams that could be in their path?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, Baylor, this is the first time in school history they've drawn a number 1 seed in the tournament. I mean, they had a great start to this season, 18-0 start. But as you mentioned, that COVID pause really took the air out of the balloon for them. But they still, first conference championship since 1950. I really kind of want to see them come a long way and be able to say the Bears are who we thought they were. You want to crown them, pull a Denny Green and a little cross-sport reference there and just really gas these guys up, because they have been fun to watch, especially early on. And those COVID pauses really kind of take the air out of the balloon for these teams. And we've seen that in the regular season. It's going to be interesting how that translates to the tournament, especially as Jason, you alluded to at the beginning. They're all kind of confined and a little stir crazy in between all these games. But Jason, what's one matchup you've got your eye on?
Definitely looking at that again. Once again, looking at that North Carolina Baylor matchup in the second round. Another one in the first round that I really want to see is Grand Canyon, Iowa. Big 7-footer Asborn mid-guard against Luka Garza. He's 7 foot, averaging 14 and 10 a game, shooting 70% from the field. I mean, just a big dominant force down there. And obviously, we know Luka Garza is big and dominant, and he's got even some finesse. He does it all. So I really want to see how those two match up. It's going to be a clash of the Titans for sure.
Yeah, that will be. Garza's going to be a fun player to watch in this tournament. And also, too, as we've alluded to, Cade Cunningham. I mean, obviously, one of the best, if not the best, college basketball players in the nation. It's going to be interesting to see how the freshman translates that skill set to this big stage. Are there any under-the-radar players that you've got your eye on that might kind of make a name for themselves in this tournament?
Got one for you there. Jason Preston of Ohio. Really crafty 6'4" guard. And I say watch out for the Bobcats. First of all, in their draw, they are matched up with Virginia, which is coming off of we think we're matched up with Virginia. If Virginia is able to be there,
yeah.
Even if they are able to be there, they will be coming off of very little practice time. They're supposed to arrive Thursday, practice Friday, play Saturday. And Ohio just trucked everybody in the MAC tournament. And Jason Preston is the key there. Really skilled, tough guy, good shooter. And I say watch out for him and watch out for the Bobcats. And I would not be shocked to see an Ohio UC Santa Barbara round of 32 game in that region. Watch out for the bracket collapse.
I like this. We're coming with some hot. I mean, you got to have, if there's not any early bracket collapse, it's not even March. But you know, an interesting thing too is that Iona is getting a lot of action early. And obviously Rick Pitino, first coach in NCAA history to take 5 different schools to the NCAA tournament. Frankie, Iona's a popular underdog. Can they really make some noise in this tournament?
I think they're really gonna. It's gonna be difficult, but I mean, if anybody can really get this team ready, I don't know if they can pull the upset, but I think they definitely could stay within this this spread. I mean, obviously this spread is double digits, and it's a big spread right now. And I think Pitino, maybe with all his ability and his experience that you alluded to, I think he can keep that back door open for bettors out there. But I'm not so sure that they can get the job done. Obviously, straight up, I'm not expecting Iona to win, but there are some other games out there that the sharps are looking to back those underdogs. We talked about this earlier at the top of the show. Obviously, in the round of 64, only 40% of the time are the favorites covering in against the number. In the first round. So obviously you're going to want to be looking at them. One of the games Pat just alluded to, and that would be UC Santa Barbara against Creighton. A lot of the early sharp money right now is fading Creighton with the way that they're playing down the stretch. They had one of their worst games and worst performances of the year in that Big East championship game when Georgetown absolutely dominated them. You're also going to want to be looking at maybe Oregon State catching some points over there, catching 7.5 right now. They look like they're going to be a live dog. We've shared several of our games over with the SI Pro community already, and we've already gotten down on some of these dogs. And, these games right now, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. But the underdogs, it looks like, once again, they are going to be barking because right now the sharp money out here and all the steam is really backing them. There's only 2 games really that stand out, guys, where favorites are looking like they're getting the respect at the window from the early sharp money. One of those games would be San Diego State. This line opened at -1. It's now up to -3. So they're seeing some strong respect, as well as the UConn Huskies. They're seeing some strong respect in the last 24 hours out here in Vegas as well. This line was at, they were favored only by 2 points. This line is now at a steady 3. And some places you're going to have to lay even $1.20 juice on laying that 3. So we're seeing that there's a potential of that line maybe even creeping up to 3.5. So those are the only 2 favorites right now that are getting a lot of the love when obviously we know in that first round, the sharp bettors are all following the trend of looking to try to back these underdogs. But the one thing I want to say, guys, is being a Villanova alum right now, obviously there's a lot of people that are down on Villanova, that we know that they lost their star point guard, Colin Gillespie. They also have their second leading scorer, Justin Moore, who's coming off, battling an ankle injury right now. And a lot of people are down on Jay Wright, and they're looking for that 5-12 typical, upset in their brackets. I would say not so fast there. Slow the roll, because I know that Winthrop can pull the upset, but I think that Jay Wright is too much of a talented coach, and in my opinion, maybe even the best coach in college basketball today, who's built the best culture in all of college basketball. I don't think that Villanova gets upset in this game. I can see the potential of Winthrop covering the 6.5 here. It is a game that I will be staying away from, but for me, I think that it's a mistake if you're automatically auto-picking Winthrop to just automatically advance in that 12-5 upset that you're always looking for. I don't think that is the one. If you want to look at one of those 12-5 upsets, keep an eye on that one that you talked about. Obviously, Pat alluded to. You have UC Santa Barbara. And also keep an eye on Georgetown against a Colorado team that, in my opinion, is maybe even seated a little too high. And Right now, Patrick Ewing has those Georgetown Hoyas playing at an elite level. So look at those. Those are two potential 12-5 upsets that you can look at to advance in your bracket.
Yeah, Georgetown was a blast to watch in that tournament. One thing that stood out to me about your Villanova take is, as a Villanova alum, and I got to say, you can't bet with your heart there, because I think a lot of people are taking Winthrop in that upset, but you never know. It's why they play the game, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. And I know we've got our oracle here, Jason, who has identified a lot of talented high school All-American players that have now become center stage in this NCAA tournament, including Cade Cunningham and all that. But, you know, when you're watching these guys, Jason, when you're watching them evolve into this collegiate player, are they on the trajectory that you thought they would be? Or is there anybody who you saw and scouted in high school and are looking at now saying, wow, this guy has really exceeded my expectations?
Yeah, I think by and large they are. I mean, right now in the tournament, we have Cade, Scotty Barnes, Greg Brown, Cam Thomas, Jalen Suggs, Evan Mobley. Those are the guys that are still playing in the tournament right now. I would say of that group, Cam Thomas was a guy. I mean, he's always been an elite scorer, but and I even talked to Steve Smith at Oak Hill about this, but you know, he's like, I thought Cam would come in and average about 16 or 17 a game. But he's averaging. I mean, I think he's blown everybody's expectations away, just the way in which he scores, and you know, his mentality is different. Like Cam is just a different guy on and off the court. Like he just doesn't care about anything but preparation, and he's like one of the most mentally prepared players that I've ever scouted, because he just blocks everything out and gets it done. But then, you know, obviously Cade was one of our first team All-Americans. He's pretty good. Evan Mobley is pretty good. So, you know, if I'm taking that team that I just told you, give me that team and you let me coach him, I'm going to win the Final Four. I'm going to be the national championship. You know, that's just what it is. So, I think one of our guys is definitely going to be looking up at the Jumbotron, looking at one shining moment. So I'm feeling pretty good about our SI All-American team for the inaugural year last year.
I feel like it's a pretty strong group right here, and I think we got a lot of popcorn to grab and watch these guys play and put on a show in this tournament. All right, before we wrap this show up, I'm going to go around the horn, get each of your Final Four predictions, starting with you, Pat. Who do you have in the Final Four?
Yeah, I've got a lot of upsets early and not many late, so I'm pretty chalky at the end. I am looking at Gonzaga, Illinois, and then I've got Baylor and second seed Alabama coming out of Michigan's region. So that's the only non-number one that I see. You know, Baylor could be vulnerable against an Arkansas. Illinois could be vulnerable against an Oklahoma State, but right now I'm rolling with that chalk.
I like it. Jason, where's your head at in these Final Four?
Well, one thing the pandemic season has not done for me is help me with my trust issues, especially with these teams. But right now I got Baylor, Gonzaga, Bama, and Illinois in my Final Four. I'm pretty confident with those four.
All right, Frankie?
Wow, it's almost like we each had our own notes. I have the same thing: Gonzaga, Alabama, Illinois, and Baylor. But the only difference is I have IO getting the job done despite all those roadblocks. I have Illinois winning the national championship over Gonzaga in a game when I think that a lot of people – listen, guys, we know that there's one name that you want to say that's flying under the radar a little bit, and that would be Jalen Suggs. As crazy as that may be on the best team maybe in college basketball right now, but all the love right now goes to Corey Kispert. But this Jalen Suggs kid is absolutely phenomenal. He's one of the best freshmen in the country. He's 14-5-5 guy. So for me, the guy that I would be looking at for one shining moment, if Gonzaga is to continue that road and get that first national championship in school history, I believe that, you know, Jalen Suggs is going to be the MOP. I think that he is the player that maybe is flying under the radar when all the love obviously goes to Corey Kispert with his outstanding shooting from beyond the arc.
I like it. I went pretty similar to you guys. I've got Gonzaga, I got Baylor, I've got Illinois, but I have Texas instead of Alabama. And there's something about this team that I'm really interested in, and I really think they could make some noise in this tournament. That 3-seed Texas, I could see them getting to that Final Four. But we got a lot of games to be played before then, starting with the first four, Thursday, March 18th, and then the tournament starts Friday, not Thursday this year, which I'm still a little bit put off by. Come on, why change it up? We've had enough change already. But make sure to follow along, fill in your bracket on SI Bracket Challenge. It's free to play for a chance to win nearly $5,000 in prizes. Visit bracket.si.com to play. And remember, we will be here every week throughout the tournament with more live coverage of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. For Pat, Jason, and Frankie, I'm Madeline. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.